Thanks for joining me today. I know you're super busy. We've got to get you in and out of here today.
I'm happy to, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for taking the time with me.
You bet, you bet. So we're talking about Akura today, coming out of the Med organization. And before the camera started rolling, we were chatting a little bit about how that PE space has been sort of flying blindly, tough to assess. Did I get the work done? What was the work? And even planning. And that Akura platform has introduced another component that has been unique to the category.
Yeah, Joe, I think it's actually very exciting when I think about it, and got really jazzed about it when I first saw what the possible capabilities are, because I've been saying for years, literally, that we need better navigation. We need to understand where we're going and what we're doing in the pulmonary artery. I mean, as of now, the technology is extremely crude when you think about it, compared to, for example, what happens in stroke and myocardial infarction, where we have perfect visualization. We know exactly what our plan of action is, what the vessel target is, and what we need to make it look like. In the pulmonary arteries, we're just putting up a big fat tube, or a medium-sized tube, or some other device, and we're turning it on and hoping that it works. And often, most of the time it does. It's actually remarkable, but sometimes it doesn't. And some of that's because we don't even know where we're targeting. You know, are we up against a wall? Is the aspiration device not working because it's sucking against a wall? Is it because it's lollipopping a big fat clot that's too organized to inhale? So when I saw the Akura possibilities that they're bringing to the table, the idea of being able to identify where the clot is in advance of the procedure, have it sort of segmented out so you know exactly where it is located, how to get there, how to navigate there, because remember, the pulmonary arteries are like the branches of a tree. They go any which way, and you don't know which way they're going to go at any moment. When you're at a bifurcation point, you don't know, do I go left or right? Because you can't see the clot, you know. So the ability to plan that in advance, to then bring it to the lab and get intra-procedural guidance and execute your plan the way you would ideally want to, is a breath of fresh air. Now, we got to see it work. We got to implement it. But I think it holds the possibility of dramatically changing the game and improving the outcomes for patients with PE, and making our jobs easier as docs, which we always like, and making it safer, quite frankly, for the patient and for the doc. More efficiency. I mean, right down the line, if you can see, then you're much better off. Imagine, you know, I'm not a Waymo car or whatever. I mean, I wish I had one of those, but you know, we don't have that in the pulmonary arteries. All we have is a two-dimensional fluoroscopic image that we can then change by doing an orthogonal angle, but then it's still 2 dimensions. So doing this in 3 dimensions with planning and interprocedural guidance would be a big boon.
And when we think about somebody with the level of your experience, tenure, and the built-in algorithm you've got from doing thousands of these procedures, what does it mean to new entrants into this category, handling PE, and they're getting, one, the guidance, the AI, potentially even advisement, if we could go that far down range with the FDA. I'm saying it, Med is not. What does that mean to pulling up that curve of performance to the early entrants to the category?
Yeah, so like I think, Joe, it's a great question. I think what you're getting at is that the ability to see better will enable operators who don't have as much experience to ramp up quicker. It's just like driving. If you've never driven before and you can't see where you're driving, then you know, if you suddenly turn on the lights, then you can see, and you can drive a lot easier. And I think it's a way to democratize a little bit the treatment of PE, and perhaps make it more shorten the learning curve for early operators, new operators, and even, quite frankly, experienced operators who always are learning, like me. I'm always learning.
Right, but the confirmation's nice for you to have, being able to see it. Why do you think it's taken so long for visualization in the pulmonary side to get some traction versus earlier you had mentioned we've got it in stroke, right? We've got it in some other categories, but why is it taking so long? Is there a bigger challenge there?
I think it's a bigger challenge. In part, nobody's really focused on it enough. So kudos to Akura for doing that. They got some really smart people there, and we came up with this idea that we need to see what we're doing better. I think that partly it's because devices that were just partly it's because we're early on in the field. I mean, we're really early on in this trajectory of treating acute pulmonary embolism with catheter-directed therapies. And the ones that were first to market, whether they be catheter-directed thrombolysis, quite frankly, which doesn't necessarily need to be directed exactly into the clot, or catheter thrombectomy, they worked. So just putting the catheter up there and starting aspirating, worked enough. It worked enough. It lowered the acute RV strain and made the patient better enough, and then anticoagulation would kick in. But I think we should not accept that as the end result. We should be always striving to do better, for which I love Akura. They're striving to do better, to make a better product, to make a better visualization, to make better navigation, better intraprocedural guidance. All of that is incredibly important, and using AI to integrate into that is critical. I think that's the other thing, is that, just as an aside, is that, the current state of the art doesn't not really allow you to use AI during a procedure because you can't see what you're doing. But once you provide information to feed into machine learning algorithms and so on, then suddenly, and then they'll feed it back to you, suddenly it becomes an empowering thing. So I think that it holds the potential to really, exponentially improve our ability to extricate clot. Also, I mean, it'll help us assess whether we're doing the right thing or not. Because quite frankly, we don't know whether when's the right time to stop. We've had, at our PERT conference and here at TCT, there have been lectures about when do you stop. And those lectures never happened before, but now they're happening because we're all realizing we can extract clot, but how much is necessary? Every patient's different. When do we stop? So I think to inform that decision, we need to have outcomes. We need to have a quantification of how much clot we're starting with and how much we're finishing with and where it is. And all of that comes with better visualization. It all comes with the kinds of programming that Akura is working on right now.
Yeah, and that's fascinating because if I think about, the oath you took, do no harm, right? There's that inflection point of which side of the curve are you on? Are you on the back side that are there not as good a results back versus being on the earlier side of that inflection point of the curve is, well, I want to stop here because I'm not sure if I'm doing any harm, and there's a trade-off there. And you've got to ask that question nearly all the time in this procedure.
Absolutely, Joe. It's a constant. It's like always on your mind. Everything you do, every maneuver you do, you're saying, have I done enough? Am I going to cause harm? And again, being informed about where you are, even a little thing like, should I advance the catheter here or not? And if you don't see where you're advancing it to, then you almost can't answer the question. It's trial and error, which carries with it some risk. So I think you're absolutely on target with that. It's a constant to and fro in our own heads. As an interventionalist, if you care about your patients, and you do, So I think it's a pretty exciting time. I think we've made huge headway in treatment of pulmonary embolism. The use of catheters, directed therapy and advanced therapies has really skyrocketed. It's skyrocketed at least in the centers where where they've embraced this technology and they've embraced the concept that you need to perform advanced therapies. I'll say there's a huge sort of what I call the silent majority out there, where there's a lot of PE happening in the communities and in remote areas and rural areas and even in the cities, where there aren't people who are savvy about PE. And so we have a lot of the PERT Consortium is working hard at that. This new PRISM initiative that we started is all about that. It's about reaching out to what we're calling the first responders, or the touch points with patients, to try to inform them, educate them about what PE is and when do you need to triage and how do you triage, and then bring them into centers where they can be treated with better and better technologies, with better and better guidance.
With better clinicians because of that.
Yes.
I appreciate it. Well, I appreciate your insights and your experience on the Akura platform and the time you took with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm Joe Mullings from the floor of TCT 2025. San Francisco, be well.